Hello and welcome to another video on Gravit. In today's video, we'll be focusing on how to use Gravit in relation to the Glowforge. There are some key elements that you need to understand when you're designing and when you're preparing to take a design to the Glowforge. So let's start with design. One of the most important factors when working with the Glowforge is going to be the final product. So when I choose a shape, let's say a rectangle, and I make that design, the Glowforge will uh, look at that design in terms of what that design is made of. So right now, this design has a gray fill only, and I can, per usual, change that color. But what you should recognize that the Glowforge, being a laser cutter, does not cut in color. Instead, it really cuts in shades of gray or etches in shades of gray. So working on the gray scale on the very edge of the color field can have an impact on how things come out. The darker the shade, the deeper it's going to cut on the Glowforge. So in the Glowforge, because it either etches or cuts, we need to associate that somehow with design elements. And in Gravit, what we're going to look at are the fills and the borders. So fills will etch, borders will cut. I'm going to take my rectangle and add a border. It's as simple as pressing that button. Unlike with fills being gradient based, and determining how they look as an etch, with borders, you need to have one, and that's about it. The thickness doesn't matter as long as it's 1 point or greater. Under 1 point, it may not cut. So once you add it, the default is 1 point. And it's added in this case, it happens to be in a black color. Now I have a shape that has both a border, and if I zoom in, maybe you can see that red line that's appearing, as well as having the fill. Let's take the fill and change its color so you can see how both objects are there. So this will be etched in as a shaded part on whatever material I'm using, and this will be the cut line. So this object will be fully cut out of the material. If I want to get more sophisticated with my design and I want to include other objects, then I could create a bigger cut space and do my design within that cut space. If I want to do a cut space that's a little more unique, I can actually add additional objects. Say I'm adding a shape here that's rounded. Then I can take this object, hold down the shift key, select this object. Now both objects are selected, and we have this new tool available here called Create Compound Shape. And it's going to merge the two shapes together. So even though they're still two separate objects, in reality, the Glowforge will see this as a compound shape and will cut along the border. In addition to adding shapes along the outside, I could add designs on the inside simply by using a new tool and putting in a shape without a border. If I had a border, it will cut that out. Using a border could be of interest. So for example, if I was making a key ring of some sort, I could use this shape, turn on a border, oops, add a border, and then I could actually turn off the fill because I'm not worried about it etching. And the way I'm going to do that is select this layer on the fills and then hit delete. So now it's really just going to cut that shape out and not fill it in. So that's a little bit about borders and fills, a really important part. Let's turn next and look at text. When I'm working with text and I want to get it to the Glowforge, text in Gravit we've seen before, and we can make lots of choices, but you want to keep some things in mind. If you're trying to etch the shape, the Glowforge is really flexible on that. It can etch a lot of shapes. If you're trying to cut things out, however, you're going to have more restrictions. Um, your restrictions are going to be partly based on the fonts that you use, partly based on issues that will come up as you're trying to text, when you cut text out, what kind of things could happen. And the most important thing is the Glowforge cannot accept the native text format that's created by Gravit. To get to a format that can be used, we actually need to take text out of its native format and change it to what's considered a path. And or Gravit makes that really easy. This button right here, convert to path, looks like a kind of like an S. We're going to click on that button one time, and you'll notice that my text has changed. It now has a little bit of a border around it. And instead of having all of the text tools available, I now have the standard path tools. So now it's converted it. It has a fill instead of a text color. And so I can use that as an etching. Or if I wanted to go to the idea of cutting it out, I could add a border and drop the fill. Now, as I've said before, that cutting out is going to be a little more challenging. So the bigger I make this, the more that's going to stand out. You can see the part that's going to be cut away. So the laser is very specific. It's very detailed. So it can do this. But if I cut out this letter E, here's a good example, the little hole in the middle is not going to be attached to anything. So even though I'm cutting out the E, it's really going to kind of look like I've cut out this entire thing, because that will go away as well. And until you play with it a couple times, that's hard to see in your head. So again, playing with text, I have to type in the text per normal, but then use the convert to path tool in order for Glowforge to use it. If your text is complex or you're not sure what you're doing, one of the things I recommend is that when you add your text and you get it the way you want it, then make a duplicate of the layer. So if I go over here, I thought there was a duplicate. Well, I have to look that back up. You can make a duplicate of your layer. And when you make a duplicate of your layer, then the duplicate you don't have to do anything with. You can hide it, and you can work just with the layer that you're wanting to work with. Finally, the export. Glowforge does not work directly with a Gravit file. Instead, it needs an SVG file. And to get that, we need to take our file and get it out of Gravit. So here's how we're going to do that. First, let's go ahead and save our work. You always want to save your work in Gravit. It will save it locally or onto the cloud. So if you use cloud, then you can access it from any computer. Give it a title that actually makes sense and save. So now my file has been saved. I can see up here it's synchronizing as it saves. And now when I go to File, I can choose an export option. And there are many. The only one I'm worried about is the SVG, Scalable Vector Graphics. It goes in to Files, and again, lets me put in a name if I don't like the name. The format is SVG. I'm saving mine to download, so you can save it anywhere on your computer. Just remember where it has been saved. And click your Save button. And now that file that's just been downloaded is the one you can import into the Glowforge software. And that's your tutorial for bringing what you make in Gravit, making sure it's ready and can be imported into uh, the Glowforge app. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll cover some more in the next tutorial.